So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is your name,
Okay.
and I'm going to ask how you spell it.
Okay.
So what's your name and how you spell
My name is Bethany Bateman McDonald. It's Bethany. My last name, Bateman McDonald. It's two last names, Bateman, space, no hyphen, Mcdonald.
it? And what title would you like to go by?
Doctor.
Okay. So these
No,
questions.
of
Okay.
course.
Based on your time here, what's one thing you would say is crucial for getting tenure at the state
Oof. So I don't have tenure, but I know that since this is an R1 school, it's a Research One university, publications are crucial, yeah, to get tenure here.
university? Do you feel like the tenure system here truly values all the different things faculty do, research, teaching, service, or does it seem to lean more towards certain areas?
That's a great question. Um, this is a hard question because I guess I'm not really in the tenure system. I believe, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, I think that what a lot of the faculty members do go largely unnoticed. Um, And I know that there are a lot of my colleagues who are on the tenure track and they do a lot of things for the university or for the department, for their students, and it goes unnoticed. And a lot of it is not even considered for their tenure review. And so, in that sense, I guess I would say, yes, that happens. Yes, there's a lot of stuff that the faculty do that get unnoticed. I do think, at least for our department, I do think that our department does a good job of attempting to see this holistic view of what it is that our faculty do. So just anecdotally, I think in our department they try to do the best they can, but I mean, there's just going to be a lot of these residual things that faculty do that just go unnoticed.
So, do you want to give an example of stuff that goes unnoticed?
Oh,
You can be vague if you don't want
very
to get
okay.
super into
It
detail.
is so specifically for tenure. So I can set something. I mean, just my personal experiences. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
some
that's
things that
perfect.
okay. So things that don't get considered or probably really haven't gotten considered. So I am a lecturer and I teach Spanish and I teach Quechua. So the Quechua program here at UGA is pretty new. And there's a lot of stuff that I think I do behind the scenes that just never gets considered. So we put on some events in, at the Athens Public Library for children, or we put out a newsletter, or we hold conversation tables. Um, um, I put together posters and promotional materials for the program, and I put together materials or events at Tate Center or things like that. So just kind of different ways to participate for the program that just kind of never gets noticed. And it's I mean and I don't want to say that in a way that sounds ungrateful. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but I think in terms of whether or not the department is aware of the things that go on the one hand, no, I don't think that they're totally I don't think that they are um, totally able to take everything that we do into account, but I also don't fault them for it. I think it's just kind of it's part of the job.
So, you said you've done a lot of research, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, have you ever felt like you had to put research ahead of teaching or service?
Oh yes. When I did my PhD, I did my master's and my doctorates here at UGA, and um, yes, when I was in graduate school, it was very obvious that research was just going to be far more important um, for my potential career. The assumption, I think, and I don't know if this is just I think maybe this is more implicit. Well, it's pretty explicit. The assumption is that if you're a graduate student, you are pursuing research, and you're kind of the path you are on and the path that you should be on is one in which you're going to end up a tenured professor at a research university, right? And so, with that expectation, um, it's just it's just kind of assumed that your research is going to be more important. You should be going to conferences and presenting, and you should be publishing, and you should be writing chapters of volumes. And this is the path that you're on. This is the path that you've chosen. And so, in that sense, definitely, when I was in graduate school, I was also teaching Spanish in Quechua, and there was definitely this expectation, I think, that I was going to do a lot more research. And I think I focused more on teaching, which also is probably why I didn't take the tenure track route. It just wasn't for me.
So, if you were giving advice to a brand new assistant professor, what would you tell them about navigating the tenure track from what you've heard from your colleagues?
A brand new professor navigating tenure track from what I've heard from my colleagues. That's a really good question. I think I would tell them, oh gosh, I don't even know if I have a good answer for that. I think, well, I mean, I guess I would tell them, obviously research is important. I think they would already know that, I suppose. I don't know if I would be qualified to tell them anything. They would probably already know everything they had to do for tenure. I suppose I would tell them, this is not professional advice at all by any means, but I think I would tell them it's all going to be okay and just take it day by day. And at the end of it all, none of it really matters that much. I don't know if I can say that. I think
Okay.
I think that's what I would say. I know that with a lot of the tenure track professors, something that never gets talked about, or it doesn't get talked enough about, is just the mental unwellness that is so prevalent among faculty members, especially tenure track professors. And I think that's one thing that I have seen a lot, is that a lot of with a lot of my colleagues who are seeking tenure, either at this university or this department or other universities, other departments. But I think one thing that I've really noticed about what it looks like to be a tenure track professor or someone seeking tenure is the anxiety and the depression and the stress and the worry and the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome and all of these terrible, awful, overwhelming feelings of inadequacy. And so I think if I met someone, or if I had a colleague who was pursuing tenure, I think I wouldn't give them any real professional advice, again, because I think they already know what the requirements are for them. I think my support would probably have to be more emotional. Um, and so if there was some way that I could serve them in that way, I think that's the route that I
So, looking back on your journey to becoming like a lecturer, professor, is there anything you wish you had done differently?
would take. Oof. Anything I wish that I would have done differently? That's a hard question. So, I mean, I'm the kind of person who doesn't really like to say shoulda, coulda, woulda. I like where I'm at. So it's kind of a loaded question, because I didn't intend to be a lecturer. This wasn't my goal. Like I said, I got my PhD. To be a lecturer, you need a master's, so technically I'm overqualified for the position. I intended to be a professor, on a tenure track, but I had children and I became a mom. And so if you're a woman in academia, it's not a supportive place. Women are very much not supported in academia. Women are not supported in many, many areas all the time, universally, but especially in academia, women are not supported. And so I really felt that when I became pregnant. And then in COVID hit, and I was doing my PhD, and I was, writing my dissertation in these small spaces of time that I had. And then I was pregnant again, And so I, had to stay home. And so my career took a big hit. My education took a hit. My career took a hit. Um, Mind you, my husband's did not. His career, his education, they took no hits. Mine did severely. And so when it came time for me to enter the job market, even though I was fully qualified, even though I have the grant money that I brought in, even though my CV is one that was fully qualified to be a tenure track professor, um, it just kind of wasn't in the cards for me at that point, because if you take, if after a certain amount of time, 3 years generally, if you really haven't done anything for 3 years after graduating, then you're kind of out because the market is so oversaturated. Then you're kind of shit out of luck. And so I felt that a lot of it. And so for that reason, me becoming a lecturer now, involved a lot of stuff. So to get to this point, it wasn't just a matter of I got the education, I took these certain jobs, and then I did or didn't make my way up the promotional ladder. It was, for me to get here, I went to graduate school, and then I was pregnant, and because women are not supported, there's no child care. Nothing was affordable. We were living in an apartment that was a shitty apartment with and rats, and it was terrible. And I had to stay home. We had no money. I have no family in the area. My husband has no family in the area. Just all these different factors compounding on each other. And so we needed my husband to have his job so that we could afford to stay where we were. And so when it came time, and then again, COVID hit, there was no childcare. Then, I was pregnant again. And so it was another hit. And then when it came time for me to look for a job, I had to find one that was conducive to my husband having his job. So my job search was automatically far, far, far more limited than someone who's untethered, someone who doesn't have children or is not married. And it was far more limited than my husband's, right? And so again, there's all this kind of messy, dirty, not pretty experiences that were involved in me getting to this point. Again, that have really nothing to do with my educational and professional choices, I guess. And so if you're asking me if there's something I would have done differently, it's a hard question, because while I recognize that all of that was it was probably one of the hardest times of my life. While I recognize that, at the same time, I also got out of that my children and a job that I am satisfied with. So sorry, that's all one rant to say. I am happy where I am. I recognize objectively that I'm overqualified professionally for the job that I have, but I'm learning to be content and appreciate the beauty that is also what it is to be a lecturer at the University of Georgia, because it is a really wonderful job.
Well, that's all for today. So
Okay.
thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.